Hi, I'm Roger and welcome back to the Tractor Tech channel. I've had several people ask for an update on my clone MS660, and I haven't done one because I haven't used the saw very much. And the main reason for that was because I've heard of several people having the piston pin or wrist pin bearing fail early on in these saws. And I'd ordered one through Steel for mine. It had been laying around for several months, and it was just one of those things I never got around to doing it. And I got to thinking, the circlips, when you remove them, they're probably really should only be used one time. So I don't know, like last week I was at the Steel dealer, they had some in stock. They're only 55 cents a piece, so went ahead and put the piston pin bearing in, new circlips. When I rebuilt the saw, I put a base gasket on it, and when I put the piston pin in it, I went back gasketless because I knew if the saw held up, I was going to be putting the piston pin bearing in it anyways. So I just put the gasket on it because a gasket is easier to clean up than what the sealer is. I took the dual port cover off my 064. I advanced the ignition timing, and then I'm also running one of the winter air filters on here. Saw cuts really good now. It's very powerful. And then it also has the cross/mastermind cylinder. So if you look around on some different forums or some other videos, I'm sure you can find parts that people say you should replace, but I didn't want to start out replacing a bunch of parts on this saw. I just kind of wanted to run the thing and see how things were going to hold up on it. For example, I'd heard that the crank rope on these saws wasn't very good. Well, my crank rope broke like last week, so I had to put a new crank rope in it. Another thing they say that is not very good is a chain tensioner, but mine actually works fine. Some of the quality of these parts seems to vary from saw to saw. So the parts in this kit that are upgraded are the crank bearings. When I rebuilt the saw, I put an OEM crank bearing in one side because it's proprietary, and then I found an SKF bearing that I put in the other side. I've heard that the Chinese crank bearings are okay, but I figured while I was into it, I wanted to go ahead and put something in it good that I was sure would last. Then it has a steel fuel line for the intake portion, Oregon Tygon for the out of tank portion. It has a steel elbow because the elbow was missing in my kit. Steel piston pin bearing and a steel circlips on the piston. It's running the highway piston since it was rebuilt. The crank rope, as I just mentioned, I have a dual port cover on it, and the aftermarket air filter, well, the steel air filter. And I think those are the only pieces that have been changed from what the kit came with. So I'll start it up. I've got this big log here. The saw's not going to reach through this first piece because there's a lot of butt swell, but after that I should be all right. The saw's been sitting about 24 hours since it was last used. So as you can see, this saw has really good power. I actually enjoy running it now. I also forgot to mention at the beginning of the video, one reason I didn't run the saw too much before was because I didn't have a bar for it. So I was like taking the bar off my 441, putting on here, and then I don't know, that becomes a hassle when you have to change bars between saws. So I think it was on Black Friday, HL Supply was having a sale. I got this bar and chain for like 28 bucks for this saw. And This chain has a little over a tank of gas on it and it hasn't been sharpened. It's still cutting really well. It's the raised bend chain that came with the bar. So as you can see, the saw is still doing well. I will post any updates of anything that happens to the saw. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel for more videos like this.